Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, I'm going to be continuing my Rising Heat guide, this time looking at the power cards. Now, Rising Heat is going to start the game with 4 unique power cards. The first one is Call on Herders for Aid. It is a 1 energy slow, Sun, Fire, Earth animal, 2 range, gather up to 2 Dahan, and then for each Dahan present, push up to 1 Explorer, Town, or Dahan. This card is critical to playing Rising Heat, and actually it's very similar to a card up here in called Isolation. And what I really like is it's flexible. So if my D7 is, let's say, the Explorer D7, I can use this card. I can gather 2 Dahan into that land. I now have 4 Dahan, so now I can push 4 things. So now I can disrupt the land, and then I can also push 2 Dahan because of the bottom part. So then I can set up Dahan as well. So it costs an energy, but it gives you that increased flexibility due to its scaling with Dahan, and it can also move Dahan as well as buildings and explorers. It also is a quad element card. So yeah, I mean it's just a very strong card altogether, and the 2 range too. Like this is probably your best card. Yeah, very 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 strong. Looking at the next card, we have Rising Heat's support card, Gift of Searing Heat. It's a 0 energy fast, sun, fire, air. You target another spirit, and they gain 2 energy. Or, target spirit may pay 1 energy to do 1 damage in one of their lands. This is a very nice support tool, allowing you to help out the team. And in solo, this solves your energy problem. So a lot of times I recommend just not using this in solo because if you do, it pretty much busts the spirit in half. I don't think the spirit is designed around having this extra 2 energy. And also the damage flexibility on bottom is so strong in solo, because remember, your Sacred Site is lowering the health of invaders. So this bottom part just reads kill a town for 1 energy. So it's just a very powerful card in solo, as well as in multiplayer, being able to support the team. Also, let's appreciate that artwork. I love the eyes in the back on fire. Just awesome. Probably your weakest card is Stinging Sandstorm. It's a 1 energy slow, fire, air, earth, so it is a perfect element card. It says gather up to 1 of your presence, 1 fear, and 1 damage. So the purpose of this card is it allows you to move presence, and then if you create that Sacred Site, you lower the invader health. So in this case, if there's a town here, and let's say you have a presence, you can get the fear, gather a presence into here, dealing the damage, and that Sacred Site forms, allowing you to kill the town. So this gives you that presence movement. The main reason why this card is used is because it's perfect element, and it allows you to move presence. And you'll notice your G3 hits Sands Mountain, or your G2 hits Sands Mountains, and your G3 can hit any land. So you're using Stinging Sandstorm in conjunction with this innate this growth option, such that you can access those jungle wetlands. And this is the main way that you're going to move presence around when you're in that reclaim loop. Let's delete that as well. And finally, you have Sweltering Exhaustion. It's a 2 energy fast power. It's a fire air. Sacred Site 2 range, 1 fear. Skip up to 1 ravage or build action. So it's a way for you to skip ravages. You could skip builds, but you only can skip 1 of them. This is a very reasonable skip. I really wish it had the earth, but it'd probably be too good. But the 2 energy is a huge price, and it's only skipping one type of action. I think this is probably the fairest skip in the entire game. And skips aren't really fair, but this is one that I would say is. So you also have 1 earth and 2 fire on tracks. So looking over here at your elemental spread, you have 12 elements. You have the 4 fire, and that is because 4 fire on your cards. You have that 2 fire on the tracks. You have 3 air on your cards with Searing Heat, Sandstorm, and Exhaustion. And this should actually be lower. You have 2 earth. You have your earth here, as well as your earth here. And then you have your 1 earth on your tracks. And this first Earth on your tracks is probably your worst spot on the entire tracks. So it even though you have the element, it's essentially a dead spot. You have 2 sun on Searing Heat and Call on Herders. This is so critical, these 2 sun, and same with this animal. These extra secondary elements are critical to hitting major thresholds, and you got that on Call on Herders. Call on Herders is pretty much everything you want to be playing. It's a card that impacts the board. It's amazing elements of sun, earth, or sun, fire, and animal. It also has the earth too, which is the weakest of the 4 elements for major synergies, but just such a really powerful card. Now you're lacking 3 elements: no plants, no water, and no moon. And not having plant, it hurts as a plant, as a player that loves playing plant spirits. Not having that plant really hurts, but it's also, I think, why I kind of gravitate to the spirit, and that's because most of my spirits are playing those plant-based cards, and Rising Heat kind of avoids them. In a way, you still want those plant defends, but you're going to focus more on those fire earth cards. Okay, so looking over here I'm going to flip this up here, and these are going to be some events. I've chosen just a bunch of events for you to kind of think about while playing the spirits. Once again, you have Sacred Sites under threat. That's your fire event, and you have plenty of fire, so you easily can pay for it. And then remember, you're dealing damage in Sacred Sites, and because your Sacred Sites reduce invader health, you'll be able to kill a ton of invaders. Missionaries is a pretty easy card for you to pay for due to having sun cards. Rising Interest as well, you have plenty of air. Remnants, this is a card you can pay for, and actually paying for could be pretty beneficial because you don't start with any sort of defend. And if this card comes up, you're likely not going to be defending the lands or your board. So it's a very easy card for you to pay for, and then you can get that future defend. And finally, Dahan Trade, another card you can easily pay for if you need to. Now, you do lose out on 2 of the best events in the game, Lesser Spirits and Years of Little Rain, and that is because you cannot pay for plant or water, or you have to at least draft cards to pay for those. In addition, you're not going to be able to pay for New Species Spread, and that is that Moon event, which could be kind of painful. I put Life's Tilt here. I think probably don't want to pay for this, but you still can, because you do have Call on Herders, though losing that animal card is very painful. Down here, I have 4 events that are pretty painful when you're playing Rising Heat. The first one is Harvest Bounty, Harvest Dust. You choose a land with buildings and you ravage there. The reason why that's a problem is a lot of times Rising Heat, you don't have a defense starting the game. So this is just going to cause an immediate blight or even a blight cascade. Hardworking Settlers, once again, causing an additional ravage with that top part of the card. You don't have a defend, so unless those lands are completely empty, this is just going to cause a blight cascade. Unless you choose bottom, of course. I have tight-knit communities, and that's going to increase the health of buildings. Why is that important? That's because it counteracts that special rule, which means if you set up having a big innate turn, and you flip tight-knit communities, you're going to be pretty sad because now all of a sudden you're not going to be able to kill those buildings. And we have Local Diaspora. This is going to push all of the invaders in that single land with the most invaders. And that can be problematic because Heat is trying to use your control powers like Call on Herders and other cards you draft to throw invaders all into one land, and then you're going to nuke it with your innate. This card just says, no, push everybody out of that land, and it can be kind of frustrating. Now, on the flip side, you have some cards that could be pretty beneficial. I have the 3 Grim Tolls as well as Fatality's Rise. I have these in here because if you set up a Sacred Site in that disease land, you're going to reduce the invader health. So there's going to be cases where you might G2 into like your sands or mountain on land 2, and then you flip Grim Toll and you end up killing the city for free, which is pretty awesome. Same thing with Fatality's Rise. So that is the disease damage cards. I also have a single beast card here. Same thing with disease. You're lowering the health of invaders in those sacred site lands. So if there's beasts, you could get or at least get pretty far ahead based off beast damage, being able to kill those invaders that have less health. The last card here, I have Cultural Assimilation. I just have it here because you have Call and Herders, and this allows you to gather Dahan and then push Dahan. You could play around this card quite a lot. You're very rarely do you get got by this card just because of your Call and Herders. So a card that usually is pretty bad, but with Rising Heat, it tends to not matter. Okay, let's look at the majors. Now I have my S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. S tier, these are like your auto picks. They're like the perfect element majors on Rising Heat. Your A tier are just very solid cards that are also on element. B tier are just decent drafts, even though they're off element. C tier, you try to avoid these cards, but they might be useful. D tier, pretty much will never use these cards. And then F tier, I can never see a reason to draft these cards outside of the team just either being really far ahead and it just didn't matter what you drafted, but these are never going to be the game-winning card on your spirit. Now, once again, Rising Heat can play majors, but I find that minor-based strat is just better, and that's because your innate is a major power. Like, this is going to clear invaders already, and I've already talked about why I don't like Top Track. The energy levels are just pretty low, and it's very hard to threshold cards because your Fire and Earth are pretty awkward. So these are just majors that I plan on getting if you're going bottom track and you have a lot of influx of energy. Maybe you have someone is playing River and they're playing that Boon of Vigor on you, and you can get that influx of energy. Okay, let's look at the majors here. The first one I have is Power Storm. Very easy threshold because you have that Searing Heat. Ooh, that Searing Heat. All you need is a single air card, which you have here or here, and you instant threshold this guy. Unleash a Torrent. It's a Sunfire, and you have two Sunfires with these two. That means you just need another fire card, and you easy threshold this, and it combos with your special rule. Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. It's a Sun animal. Wait a minute. We also have a Sun animal. Remember that Call on Herders? And we have Searing Heat. So we could, if you get to 3 plays, Vigor plus Call on Herders plus Searing Heat, and you threshold Vigor. And this is kind of funny. If you're solo, this gives you plus 2 energy. So you get 1 energy here, plus 2 here, 1 on Reclaim. Means you can threshold Vigor on repeat in solo. On repeat and on Reclaim is what I meant to say. Another thing is Call on Herders allows you to move Dahan in the slow. So you can move Dahan in the slow and then set up for a Vigor. So like that Sun animal I mentioned earlier, that is why. It's just so good. Forests of Living Obsidian. This is one of my favorite cards on the Spirit because you can threshold it on 2 plays, which is pretty nuts. All you need is the top Earth Fire here and this, and you play Forests, plus you play your Call on Herders once again, and threshold it. And I think that is pretty awesome. Indomitable Claim, a card that you're not looking to threshold, but you can if you really wanted to. You have the Sun Earth here and the Earth on here. Paralyzing Fright, another card you can easy threshold. You have Stinging Sandstorm, that Air Earth. This is Air Earth, and then you have the Earth on top track. So this one Earth here is needed to threshold Paralyzing, Indomitable, and then there's a couple other ones. Instruments, another card that you can threshold easy with Call on Herders, that Sun Fire Animal, which means this card plus Searing Heat plus Instruments, all you need is one other Sun card, and you get to threshold this card on 4 plays. And being able to threshold Instruments with your base kit is huge, it's massive. I just have Trees because this is just one of the best majors in the entire game. Pyro Flow, this is a major that's more on theme with Rising Heat, and it is also combos well with the special rule. But it's very easy to threshold. You can play Singing Sandstorm plus Pyro, and then any one of your air cards, and you threshold this. It's also perfect element, by the way. Storm Swath, a card that normally is pretty medium, but on Rising Heat, it's really strong, and that's because of your special rule, where all invaders have -1 health in the sacred sites. This basically reads, kill all buildings or kill all towns in 2 different lands if they have sacred sites, But if you target the same land, it's 2 damage to all invaders, which would kill everything. And the threshold isn't that tough to hit. You have a fire air here, fire air here, and then if you get an air water, you can threshold this. Vengeance of the Dead, just a very powerful card, and you have the animal tech to threshold. You just need one more animal. And when you combo this with your innate, you can just wipe out a land and then use the threshold to AoE kill all adjacent invaders. Voice of Command, it's a Sun Air card you can threshold. You have the Sun Air and you have the other Sun, so you can threshold this on 3 plays. Once again, Voice of Command, it combos well with Colon Herders. Rapid Wings, another just solid pickup. You can also threshold it, not sure if you want to, but having access to a fast-moving Dahan defense / Dahan movement card is quite advantageous. I also have Pent Up Calamity here because it is a Fire Earth, and that's kind of what you're looking for. And the tokens are pretty decent, and it is damage. So going down to the A tier, I'm going to go a little bit quicker here. We have Trees Radiate, just a solid pickup. Infinite Vitality, you have 4 Earth, and that's very easy to hit. With the top Earth here, as well as your Earth cards. Tiger's Hunting, threshold is 2 Sun, 2 Moon, and 3 Animal. But wait a minute, we have a Sun animal. All we need is 1 Moon animal, and we can threshold this card. Solidify, just a nice skip. Exaltation, just a nice damage-based card. It also has that fire. Angry Bears, another card we can easy threshold because we have a fire animal. All we need is 1 other animal, and boom, the card is thresholded. Blazing Renewal, this card's a little bit tougher to threshold because it requires plants, and we have 0 plant on our cards. But one of the cool things with this spirit is if you have 2 destroyed presence, you can bring them back with Blazing, and then all the invaders have less health. And then Blazing will just kill all of the buildings. UG is a great card. Rumbling Earthquake, another 4 Earth card, just like Infinite Vitality. You can easy threshold that. Spiders is just a solid pickup, another card that you can threshold quite easily because you have the Earth animal. The air, all you're missing is a 3rd animal. Unearth is a Earth fire card, so it helps hit that innate. This card is pretty tough to hit because you're missing Moon and Animal, so you'd need to draw a Perfect Element card, but I think it's better on Rising Heat than a lot of other spirits. I also put Bombard in this tier just because it's cheap, it has Earth, and it's damage that also adds Badlands, so it can combo with your special rule quite nicely. Looking at the B tier cards, I'm just going to go a little bit quicker. Walls is pretty easy to threshold. Fire and Flood, I can't believe I have it in B tier, but you have a lot of fire, and the damage combos well with your special rule. Sweep, I mean, you're missing a water card, but you can easy threshold this if you need to. Pillar, it's kind of funny I have it here, but the threshold is only for fire, and that's the one element you have the most of. So my guess is it's probably an instant threshold in the mid game. Flow, allowing you to move presence, so you can set up those sacred sites easier. I think if there's anything else here. I like Weave, as you're able to combine 2 lands and then have that sacred site affect both of the lands. Transform, unfortunately you're missing the plant and the moon, so you can't threshold this card, and you're low on presence, so this is a card you probably don't want to pick up. Blocking Winds, these are just solid pickups. Twine is good. Thickets is also good. Yep, so that's B tier. C tier, I have Mists here only because it's 1 damage to each invader, and that combos with that Sacred Site rule, so you can wipe out all towns. Consuming Void is too expensive. Plague Ships, I mean, you're missing the water. It seems like an awkward card on Heat. Settle, I really wanted this card to be good, and it probably could be if you just had like a plant somewhere. But because you lack plant, thresholding this card is going to be fairly difficult. Smothering, it's medium. Inspire, medium. Thrashes is medium. You're missing all of the moons, so you're just not thresholding these cards. Firevine, missing the plant. Deathfall, Sea Monsters. These are just cards that are all off elements. I have Volcanic Eruption, even though this is perfect element for you, because it costs 8 energy, and it is a huge investment into elements. I just think that by the time you can play this card, you probably could have just won the game based on your innates and your uniques. Accelerated Rot, these are cards. Split Bitterness is another card that maybe it could be higher. I mean, it's 6 damage, but it's 0 range. And that means you're going to be killing your presence, which means you're going to be losing out on that sacred site. But I think the damage happens first, right? Yeah, so the damage happens first. So you might be able to kill a lot of invaders, but then you're going to lose that sacred site likely. Irresistible Call. I mean, could be an argument to move this up to B tier. It's very expensive and it's completely off element. And then Bloodwrack Plague. Once again, don't like use this as like the Bible or like take this too heart. Like this is just a rough where I would put cards. I mean, I did this in like 5 minutes, just threw them out on the table. Um, D tier, I mean, Cast Down, Twisted, Vanish, Terrifying Nightmares, Dream, Manifest, Fragments, Lands. It's just they're very expensive, or they're not doing what you want to do with the kit. And then, of course, the 2 cards that are at the bottom of all of the lists, as well as Savage Transformation. I just never see a reason to ever pick this card up on Heat. Okay, once again, looking at the minors here, very similar to the majors. I don't get too caught up in the order. I just quickly threw them on the table. But really, you're looking for those 0 cost support cards because you're going to have that extra flex spot here with that 5th fire, or the 5 plays and the extra fire. As a result, you can play those very powerful 0 cost supports like your Gift of Power, your Living Energy, Nature's, Gift of Constancy, stuff like that. I put Quicken here. It's on element. It does 1 damage to each building. And look at your sacred sites. Invaders have less health. This is going to kill all those towns. So excellent. I have Rouse here as well. It's on element. 2 damage in a sacred site land is pretty nuts for you. Drought, easy card to threshold because you have some sun cards. And if you don't, it's 1 damage to all buildings. Well, in your sacred site, everything has less health. Carapace, Call to Guard, these are just solid defends. Call to Trade is a solid skip card. All of them have Earth. A tier, these are just solid pickups, just not as auto pick as the cards appear. But like your 0 cost on element cards, like Call to Ferocity. You have your more expensive defense, like Nature's Res, Domesticated, Favor. I also put some fear cards in here, like Portents and Rain of Blood, and that is because the spirit lacks fear, but you have that 5th card play. So your 4 card plays is you trying to hit your innate. Your 5th card play is your flex. So if you're not playing a support card, well, maybe you're playing Rain of Blood every turn and getting the team 3 fear. Cards like Terrifying Strife is great, or Territorial Strife, not Terrifying, but Territorial Strife, 3 damage in lands with cities, has to go to buildings or explorers, and this could read kill 3 towns in your Sacred Site land. Shore Seas is that nice on element Badlands Wilds. Steam Vents can fast kill towns, which is pretty cool. What else? Yeah, I mean these are just all very solid cards. You got the 0 fires with Weep and Treacherous Waterways. A 0 cost fire is really important on the spirit because on turn, well, depending on the opening, but on turn 2 or turn 3, that could enable this innate because you need 1 extra fire. And it being 0 cost is really important to making the energy economics work properly. B tier, these are cards I'm going to pick up less likely than the cards above. I'm just looking to see if there's any standouts. Yeah, no, I don't think there is. I mean, I'll pick them up depending on the case. Like maybe I'm playing against Russia and I'll grab Disorienting because it's a fast explore push. You add a wilds, or maybe I'm gonna grab Twisting Trail. I disrupt the land. I isolate it. So there's gonna be cases where you will pick them up. I just find that you pick them up less than what's up here. Maybe Unquenchable should be higher, as that usually kills a building. Rackard is 0 fire, so maybe that also goes up here. Don't get too caught up in the rankings. Okay, looking at C tier, these are cards I very rarely see myself picking up. I mean, Renewing Boon. What was the other? Absorb Corruption. These are cards that are just pretty terrible on Heat. I also have some of the Blight healing cards and disease adding, like Call to Migrate, Thriving Choke Fungus, just cards that just aren't going to do much for the spirits. Flesh Rot, Scream Disease. Light healing, like Uncanny Melting, is pretty awkward because it's lacking elements. I have like Purifying Flame or Renewing Rain up here in my B tier, and that is because they at least have Earth. You're able to heal Blight, and you're kind of on element. Uncanny Melting, you're completely off element. Delusions, I mean, there could be an argument of putting Delusions up into B tier. Infested, yeah, I can't really, like, I wanted to make this card work because it can deal 1 damage to each invader, which sounds spicy with your special rule, but it's like you need to like set it up. You got to add a disease, and then you have to play the cards. You have to play the card twice. I mean, maybe it's definitely better than some of the other cards down here, but I guess it's probably B tier. Like maybe you move these two to B tier. I'll do it because it's driving me nuts. Move those to B tier and probably move Rack Root up to here. Maybe run Unquenchable up to here. Why my tier lists always, I'm constantly updating them. So yeah, I'm gonna make it all nice and lined it up. Everyone always asks me how do I do that. You just create a box around stuff and then press a number key on your keyboard. All right, so that concludes the video. Hopefully this helped. If you were confused or wanted to know more about Rising Heat and the major synergies and what cards to look for while drafting for Rising Heat, in the next video, I'm going to be talking about openings.